Let me tell you something that every Filipino who has ever worked with Japanese customers has either experienced or will eventually experience. The review that sounds almost nice but somehow feels like a slap in the face. You read it twice. You wonder if you are overreacting. You show it to a friend and they also cannot decide if it is a compliment or a complaint. And then you realize it is absolutely a complaint. It was always a complaint. It was just wrapped so carefully in polite language that the average reader might miss the damage entirely. Welcome to the world of passive-aggressive Japanese feedback, and welcome to one of the most uniquely frustrating experiences in cross-cultural service work. To understand why this happens, you need to understand something fundamental about Japanese communication. In Japan, direct confrontation is generally considered socially inappropriate. Saying clearly and bluntly that something was bad, that a person failed, or that a service was disappointing is seen as aggressive, a disruption of the social harmony that Japanese culture works very hard to maintain. This does not mean Japanese people do not have strong opinions. They absolutely do. But the way those opinions get expressed, especially in writing, especially publicly, follows a set of unwritten rules that prioritize surface politeness above direct honesty. The feeling gets communicated, but it gets communicated through implication, careful word choice, strategic understatement, and the deliberate absence of positive language rather than the direct presence of negative language. For someone raised in a communication culture, where saying what you mean is considered respectful and honest, this can be genuinely maddening. Here is what this looks like in practice. On ESL tutoring platforms, a passive-aggressive Japanese review might say something like, "The teachers seem to be doing their best." Read that in isolation, and it sounds fine. But in the context of Japanese communication, the phrase "doing their best" without any accompanying praise is a signal. It means the result was not good enough. The effort is being acknowledged because acknowledging effort is polite. The outcome is being quietly dismissed because criticizing outcomes directly would be rude. Another common one. It was a different style from what I expected. Translation: I did not like it. The word different is doing a lot of work in that sentence. It sounds neutral. It is not neutral. It is the reviewer's way of saying the experience fell short without technically saying anything negative. Or consider, I think this teacher might be better suited for beginners. That sentence sounds like a helpful observation. What it actually means is, this teacher was not good enough for me. The implication of being below the reviewer's standard is delivered through a suggestion rather than a statement, which keeps the reviewer's hands clean while making the point clearly to anyone who knows how to read between the lines. In restaurant reviews, the pattern is identical. A Japanese reviewer who had a genuinely awful meal might write, "The portion size was smaller than I anticipated, and the wait time was somewhat longer than the website suggested." That is a complaint about both the food quantity and the service speed, but it reads like a calm, factual observation. There is no anger in the language. There are no exclamation marks. There is no declaration that the restaurant was bad. But the rating attached to that review might be 1 or 2 stars, which tells you exactly how the reviewer actually felt. The words were polite. The number was honest. Learning to read both together is the key to understanding Japanese feedback accurately. Product reviews follow the same formula. I had some difficulty understanding the instructions, means the instructions were terrible. The color was slightly different from what appeared in the photo, means the product was misrepresented, and the reviewer is disappointed. It arrived later than expected, might come with a 3-star rating even if everything else about the product was fine, because in Japanese consumer culture, punctuality and accurate description are not optional. They are baseline expectations, and falling short of a baseline is a genuine failure. The polite language surrounding these observations does not soften the rating. It just makes the criticism harder to respond to directly because, technically, nothing explicitly negative was said. Now here is the part that particularly gets under the skin of many Filipinos working in this industry, and this is worth saying directly because it is a real cultural clash that does not get acknowledged enough. Filipino communication culture, broadly speaking, values directness, warmth, and authenticity. When a Filipino is happy, they say so clearly. When they're frustrated, most will either say so or show it in ways that are readable. There is a generally high value placed on genuineness, saying what you mean, meaning what you say, and not hiding your actual feelings behind layers of carefully constructed polite language. This is not a flaw. It is a strength. It builds trust, it builds real connection, and it makes relationships feel honest. Plastic behavior, the Filipino term for people who act sweet and pleasant on the surface while harboring completely different feelings underneath, is something most Filipinos have a strong negative reaction to. It feels dishonest. It feels manipulative. It feels like the person in front of you is performing a version of niceness while actually thinking something entirely different, and the gap between the performance and the reality is what makes it so uncomfortable. For a Filipino tutor or service provider reading a passive-aggressive Japanese review, that gap is exactly what they're encountering. The words say one thing, the rating says another. The experience of the reviewer is being filtered through a communication style that prioritizes social face over factual honesty, and the result lands, for many Filipinos, as the textbook definition of plastic behavior. The frustration is completely valid. When you work hard, deliver a genuine service, and invest real energy into every session or interaction, receiving feedback that cannot even be honest about its own dissatisfaction feels deeply disrespectful. It denies you the information you would need to actually improve, because the real complaint is buried under so many layers of polite cushioning that you cannot clearly identify what went wrong. It also creates a strange emotional situation where you cannot even be sure you are reading the feedback correctly, which adds a layer of second-guessing to an already frustrating experience. And because the language is technically polite, you have no clear grounds to object to it, even when you can feel the impact of what is being implied. Understanding the cultural reason behind this communication style does not make it less annoying, but it does change how you respond to it. Passive-aggressive Japanese feedback is not designed to hurt you personally. It is designed to comply with social norms that have been drilled into Japanese communicators since childhood. The reviewer genuinely believes they are being appropriately measured and respectful. They may not even realize how the gap between their language and their rating reads to someone from a different cultural background. This does not excuse the impact, but it does clarify the intent, and clarifying intent prevents you from carrying personal offense about something that was never actually personal. The practical takeaway for anyone working with Japanese customers is straightforward. Do not read Japanese feedback for tone alone. Read the rating first, then the language. The number is the honest signal. The words are the cultural wrapper. If the rating is low and the language is mild, you are looking at real dissatisfaction expressed through the only communication style the reviewer knows how to use publicly. If the rating is high, but the language is lukewarm, you probably have a satisfied customer who simply does not use effusive praise as a communication tool. And if you receive a review that sounds almost like a compliment but leaves you feeling vaguely insulted, trust that feeling. Your instincts about subtext are probably correct. You are not imagining the edge underneath the politeness. It is there. It was always there. Now you just know what to call it. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe for Japanese and Korean language learning content, fun ESL class stories, sometimes even the toxic ones, plus videos about pets, plants, and anything interesting I discover in my daily life.